Our next speaker is going to be our keynote presentation by Emily. So when you end up as the chair of Tourism, Arts, and Cultural Development, and you're me, which, believe it or not, I am not the most culturally developed person on earth. I used to think a baseball game was like arts and culture, so it's been a real learning experience, and it's been really amazing to work with great people like Emily, like Beth Ann from Mass Cultural, who I know is here in the audience. And what I've learned is that I think often people in the cultural sector are so busy doing work and so busy trying to make a living that they forget that they also need to be advocates and partners with government. And so what I really hope people are going to take away from this conference is that your expertise is important, and those of us in government are always looking for partners that teach us what to do. And so with Emily, who is the director of MASSCreative, which is the advocacy arm for cultural activities, I hope we're going to take away a little bit about learning how to advocate for government, and how to advocate for funding for important institutions in a year where budgets are going to be tight. But a statement needs to be made by all of you that this is a place worth investing because you pay back dividends. So, Emily, you got to live up to that now too. The Lieutenant Governor delivered. I know you can too.
Thank you so much, Chair. Good morning, all. It is great to see you. Give me one moment. I'm going to get my slides together. While I'm doing that, when I was 20 years old, I packed up my car and drove all of Route 2 to get to Williamstown to be a member of their acting apprentice company when I was 20. And it was that moment, right, when you go on the hairpin turn. And it was the first time I got to do that. It's always my favorite drive in Massachusetts. And while it was my first time coming to Williamstown and to North Adams, I got to live in the MCLA dorms for 2 weeks before we moved into the Williams College dorms. It was an eye-opener, and it was an eye-opener in a couple of ways. One, about the vibrancy and the community of artists and creativity that was happening in the Berkshires, as well as, for me, really kind of running full tilt into a concrete wall about what it means to be a theater artist, and what it means to work long, long hours to make something that I believe in, which was theater at the time. And so I keep coming back here. I came back here to North Adams and to Porches and to MASS MoCA right before I had my baby, as a place to sort of like think before I gave birth to Eliza, and it continues to be a space where I come to remind myself about the importance of the work that we do. So thank you, Chair, for hosting us today and for bringing us all together. And Lieutenant Governor, it is remarkable to have leadership partners in the governor and the lieutenant governor's office who not only believe in arts and culture, but get it on such a fundamental level. And so thank you so much. Representative Barrett, the story of this space is just, it's the best good news story we have to tell. It is the best piece of ammo. When I go and talk with my colleagues in other states, I talk about North Adams and I talk about MASS MoCA because it is the game changer in rethinking a city and moving us from scarcity to abundance, which is what I want to talk about today. So, we are everything we need. And I think that's really important to remember, especially at a time when we are being told consistently through every single communications platform one could possibly dream up that we are not enough. And so I'm going to start by talking about some raw data around the creative economy, but then I'm going to move us beyond that. So Here's the headline. Massachusetts creative sector is significant. You've heard it already, but let's sort of put some real numbers to that. We bring almost $30 billion in economic value to Massachusetts economy. That is 4% of our economy. It's more than construction. It is more than transportation. It is reflective of over 130,000 jobs. That is more than transportation. It is more than utilities. We have over 15,000 cultural organizations in Massachusetts, and that is not exclusive to nonprofit organizations. In fact, only 50% of that 15,000 are nonprofit organizations, which means we have creative businesses that make up our creative economy. We have independent entrepreneurs that make up our creative economy. And speaking of that, we have 112,000 generators, arts generators, that are making more than 50% of their income from arts, humanities, and the interpretive sciences. We are a force, and we are part of what makes Massachusetts a place that we are all proud to call home. To speak of that, I was just at a conference in Austin, Texas. Yes, I did take a Waymo. Yes, the future is here, and it is startling. But the SMU Data Arts, which is one of the premier data collection and interpretation organizations in the country, puts out an annual report about the most vibrant communities and states in our nation. And I was delighted when Jen from SMU Data Arts flagged that Massachusetts is the third most vibrant arts state in the nation. But more importantly than that, as a third, which, you know, I love being third, would love to be first, California, New York, we're coming for you, is that it's not just the state. SMU Data Arts ranks our communities, and they look at a number of factors to come up with what an arts vibrancy number is. It's about the amount of investment, it's about the number of jobs, it's about the number of activity related to arts and culture. And I'm really excited to let you all know, if you didn't know already, is that Pittsfield is fourth in most, artistic, vibrant, small community in Massachusetts. Boston is third for large community, and then Vineyard Haven is fourth for small community. So that's across the state. This isn't something that is isolated to one region. This is a driver and an engine for the Commonwealth. Arts and cultural events bring dollars to our communities. And here's two wonderful little sound bites that I love to talk about, is that in New Bedford, right, another gateway city, there is 300 million in direct revenue that is coming into that city from arts and cultural production and events. In Springfield, attendees to arts and cultural events spend an average of $31 per person on event-related activities, right? That's a ripple effect. That's the experience of when someone comes to Fresh Grass, that the hotels and the restaurants feel that ripple effect, right? And that wouldn't happen if it wasn't from the individual artists and the cultural organizations and businesses that draw people to our area. So what does this all mean? Because data points are really fun. I definitely wooted really loud when they said we were the third most vibrant state in the nation. I'm gonna hold on to that for a little while longer. But those are just data points, and they don't tell the whole story. Because we are living through another period where we are being fed a lie of scarcity. And for the arts community, that is something we have been told forever. It is the story that's told when someone says, can't really pay you for that poster design, but you can put your name on it and it's gonna be really great exposure for you. Or when that intern comes to work at a theater festival and not only is not paid, but pays to participate in that theater festival. It's also the scarcity story when we hear on the news that there is a trillionaire who was just given a salary of over $1 trillion. And yet 2 weeks ago, I was working with families in my school district to raise money to help families affected by the loss of SNAP benefits. This is scarcity mentality. And when the creative community, who has known and been fed the lie of scarcity mentality for generations, is convinced of that, that's when we're at our worst, right? That's when we decide that it's more important to have a sharp elbow and make sure that we get the grant or we get the sponsorship, instead of our whole sector stop accepting scraps and demand to have a seat at the table and to be served an equal portion. It's also part of the myth that tells us that if we just work like a little bit harder, if we just like are a little bit more charming, that we can fix the problem. And these are structural, systemic problems that require us to be in relationship and in community with other issues, with other workers, with other businesses, and with other nonprofits, to say, if we want to be proud of who we are as Massachusetts, on the other side of this, we're going to have to make some choices about how we are in relationship to each other right now. I want to just mention that I think last January was a sobering moment for many of us when, seconds after he was sworn in, the president signed a series of executive orders that were meant to scare us, were meant to silence us, and were meant to erase us. And I was on a call. MASSCreative does a lot of, we try to do these organizing huddles, right? We try to bring folks together to share out the information, to share some things, some action steps to do, and to build community to say, how can we work together? And my colleague, Tiffany Alicia, said, I just like to say her name because I know I get applause. Hey. She said, many of us have been working with nothing for a long, long time. So now we are all together and we can think differently how we are going to move forward. So let's talk about that, because as we know, on the federal level, and I get ready for my most controversial statement of the day, on the state level, we have resource. We have revenue. We have smart people who, as Chair Mark pointed out, want to work with us to make a stronger Massachusetts that is more creative and vibrant and connected and equitable. And so what I'm interested in thinking about with you all today is, how do we reject scarcity? How do we live into abundance? And that doesn't mean blank checks. It doesn't mean a unlimited amount of time. As Lieutenant Governor said, our time is our most precious resource. But it means us thinking differently and thinking and leaning in to what it means to work together to create more together. And I think already I'm seeing that happening. I'm seeing that happening in part due to the direction of Mass Cultural Council's work to integrate and weave in the arts into health, into transportation, and seeing a difference, right? Seeing how when we are at the table, when we are thinking together with our partners across different issue areas, we are stronger, right? We are more connected. We are changing the way we think about climate justice and climate resiliency. And so today, that's my message, is that we are already what we need to move forward. We are an economic engine. That's not a question, that is truth. But more importantly, we are people, we are community, and we are the power that can shift the way that decisions are made. And what's great, again, I was just in Austin, I was with my colleagues who advocate for the arts in deeply red, in strongly purple, in lightly lavender, and deeply blue states. And we're lucky. We don't have to convince our elected decision makers that arts matter. We don't have to convince our elected decision makers that creative expression is essential for how we wake up and be proud of ourselves in the morning as residents of the Commonwealth. But we do have a responsibility to make sure that they have the information, the knowledge, and the political cover from all of us to make choices that will benefit our sector. And so here's what I'm going to be thinking about today, and I invite you to join me in this. How are we going to build a stronger coalition among our creative community in Western Mass? How are we moving away from sharp-elbowed scarcity thinking, where if one of us gets a grant and the others don't, it's a loss for the others? How do we move to a place where we are thinking about growing the pot and growing the pie and growing the resources and holding the door open for the 5 other artists or cultural organizations or creative businesses when you get a seat at that table or get admission into that room? What's already happening that could grow and strengthen? This event is the result of an incredibly strong champion for arts and culture in the State House, but it's also the result of advocates who came together and said, how are we going to think differently about building an advocacy coalition together for Western Mass? How are we going to reach across sectors and issues for common cause to build our collective power? We are not going to have the conversation about artist housing anymore. We are going to have the conversation about attainable and affordable housing for everyone in Massachusetts. How are we going to support and educate our champions? Here's the secret. I don't walk into an elected official's office and meet resistance on this issue. Everyone agrees arts and culture are great. Everyone agrees that their district is more vibrant and more fun thanks to arts and culture. But then they have tough choices to make. And we are the folks who are going to give them the ammunition that stops them from having to we're going to give them the ammunition that they need when they walk in and talk with their colleagues and say, yes, these things are all important, but we are not going to cut arts and culture funding or support in this moment, because that would be a mistake, because that would be ripping out of our communities what makes us proud and what makes us great. And then finally, how are we going to cultivate more champions? How are we going to have the business community and the private sector stand up and say, when we are thinking about how we attract talent to Massachusetts, we talk about arts and culture first. So you cannot stop funding or stop supporting arts and culture, because that is how we bring more people to Massachusetts. We are everything we need when we are working together, and when we move away from scarcity and we move towards collective action and abundance. So those are the things I'm going to be thinking about today, and I'm really excited, and I hope to have conversations with you about this as well. My staff, Kelsey and Rishlene, will be very unhappy with me if I don't remind you that we have some other ways, that this is another moment, another step forward in momentum that we are seeing across the Commonwealth to build political power for arts and culture. And again, thank you for bringing us all together, but there are a couple of other things. So actually, thanks to Chair Mark and to Chair Garbely, we will be having our Creative Sector Advocacy Week March 2nd through the 5th. So this is a week. This is not a day. This is not just a lobby day. This is a week. And the reason that MASSCreative and our co-hosts want it to be a week is because we want to have activations in every single region and community of the Commonwealth. This is a week where we bring folks together to remind people about why arts and culture is so important, bring people together for tough conversations and for building bridges across issues that we can find commonality, and bring people together so that they can join in advocating for the things that matter to them, AKA the arts. We'll also be at the State House to celebrate the contributions of artists and creatives on March 3rd. And I'm gonna tell you something that really upset me last year, which was we were talking with some folks and said, hey, we'd really like to bring more folks from the Berkshires. And the answer was, oh, they won't come to the State House. So, I don't know, maybe you should prove them wrong this year. And then again, please save the date, and Rep. Barrett, we will be holding our 3rd statewide Creative Sector Summit on June 2nd in New Bedford. So again, I know it's a hall, but we will have a hotel room block. But that's another opportunity for us to come together as a statewide sector to talk about how we will move forward in abundance, how we will keep this momentum going, and how we aren't going to stop our work together. So thank you so much, and thank you for this day.
Yeah, thank you. That was amazing. And Creative Sector Day at the State House. It was at Creative Sector Day at the State House that a woman named Ruth from the Northampton Jazz Fest came over to me. And I said, where are you from? Northampton? Not my district, leave me alone. And she said, we'll come to your district. I said, okay, bring my constituents. She came to my district, she brought my constituents. But that day matters because it's a chance to go down there and interact with people. Yes, we do this, and we do a municipal conference as well, because we want to bring the State House here to our region, but it is also important, just because it's far, just because it's easier to go to the Albany State House than to go to Boston, we have to take advantage, we have to be down there, we have to be part of the conversation. So, Emily, thank you so much, it's great to partner with you.